Oh, no, you are here, Rory's here, and there. Is this working? Can you hear? Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. Sorry that we are a few minutes late, but this is the first panel that we're hosting this year in the House of Kosovo. This is our second year that we're doing the House, and so we're really, really happy to have here a special guest. So with me on the stage, we have the Prime Minister Albin Kurti, who I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but our other guest is also a very, very popular person, Rory Stewart. So a brief introduction about both for the audience, maybe live streaming or maybe who would like an introduction. So Prime Minister Albin Kurti has led the first full mandate in Kosovo's history. And he had elections again. He's also the leader of Vetëvendosje Party, which is a center-left party in Kosovo, and or pardon me, Kosovo, and he has won a resounding mandate and is looking forward to forming the new government. Rory Stewart has been in politics as the diplomat, cabinet minister in various positions, and also an MP. He now teaches at the, he's a professor of practice at Yale, and also co-hosts a very, very popular podcast called The Rest is Politics. So this is the hook into the conversation. The conversation will be had between two of you. I'm more here to keep time and also bring some audience questions if we have time, because we decided to make this public and we're accepting questions, and we have a great deal of them. So if time permits us, I'd like to get into some, or maybe summarize some. But I remember, because the Prime Minister was a guest in your podcast, and you two were talking at great lengths about philosophy, and I'm not following up on that because I think present company included doesn't have exactly the knowledge that both of you have, but is there something that you had wanted to ask the Prime Minister at the podcast that you have been thinking about and wished you could ask, and now you have your chance? Starting with very low pressure question, I'm sure, but...
Yeah. Well, Prime Minister, firstly, thank you very much, and thank you for doing the interview. I think the first thing that an international audience will need to understand is this amazing result in the election. Many people here from Kosovo will understand what's happened, but for international listeners who are maybe watching online, the Prime Minister took what from abroad looked like what we call the Emmanuel Macron risk, which is to say that you feel you don't have enough votes, you don't have enough percentage of the vote, so you go back to the people and you say, in order to clarify my position, have more strength, I'm going to ask you to vote again. And of course, when Macron did this in France, it went catastrophically wrong. He said, you know, I need more votes, I need your support, we're going to defeat Le Pen. He went back and he lost his majority completely and ended up in a weaker position. I went through this in my own political career. Theresa May, when I was the cabinet minister, thought she didn't have enough votes to take Brexit through. So she went back to the people, asked for more support. She lost her majority completely, and she was completely unable to negotiate Brexit. So my first question is, were you not a little bit worried about what you were doing and how this could go wrong? And did you not have advisors saying, Prime Minister, you're crazy, this is...
Very interesting and important question, and I hope that my answer will be likewise. It's great to be with you in the same panel, Rory. After London and your studio, we are in Davos, in the House of Kosovo. Well, first of all, we didn't go to new elections because we wanted to. That was never our goal, and it was a consequence of lack of collaboration with the opposition. We won back in February 42.3%, but apparently this was not enough. And we tried everything. We tried to meet with one or two opposition parties. One of them didn't want to meet. One of them wanted to have Speaker of Parliament with 3 MPs only. And then when they did not accept our proposal for Speaker of Parliament, we replaced that name several times, and they, again, opposition said no to all of them. Then I replaced myself with my deputy in the party, Glau Konjovca, who used to be Speaker of the Parliament and will be next Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. But they again said no. So throughout 2025, it was clear in the minds of the people, a well-established explanation that we don't have a new government, not because we didn't win elections, but because no one wants to collaborate with us. So I think that if I would want new elections, people could have punished me too. I didn't want new elections. But if the elections are there, I better be ready. So there were the consequence of non-cooperative opposition rather than any kind of zeal on my side to have new elections.
Okay, and this is too much me as a politician, but there's also a political risk, which is you were an incumbent, which is difficult. Cost of living is always problematic. Of course, you can say, like the British government or any government in Europe, there are external factors, COVID, geopolitics, but still, people tend to punish the incumbent government. Yeah. So again, if you looked at that, you would think, oh, this guy's taking a big risk. He could lose his majority. And in fact, some people predicted that this would be dangerous for you.
Yes. We had impressive economic growth throughout our mandate. Annual state budget this year and GDP this year, in comparison to 5 years ago, is nearly 70% higher. And we also did not keep growth for the state, we distributed in the society. So one could say that our viewpoint on politics is the one of combining struggle and service. Political struggle and public service, but not struggle at the expense of service, but struggle side by side with service. Because we did not fail on delivering to people, and the growth is when you subtract inflation, so it's real growth, it's not nominal growth, and throughout 2025, our growth did not fall below 4%. For example, in second quarter of 2025, it was 4.58%. So in spite of political crisis, there was no financial, economic, or social crisis. And people felt that they are being taken care of. So in spite of political struggle, you do not fail in public service. And that's why I think we got rewarded at the end.
Okay, so final one on the elections, and then we'll move on to bigger issues. Again, the international story, right, if you listen to podcasts, read newspapers at Kosovo, from February onwards, throughout last year, was very worried. You know, people would talk about crisis, paralyzed government, what is happening in the municipalities in the north, what's happening with Serbia. There was a new US administration in place. There was pressure from the EU. There were questions about $1 billion worth of international financial assistance, which was held up. So there was a huge amount at stake. I mean, you achieved growth, yeah, but how did you achieve growth even though for the last 12 months, basically the narrative was political crisis and serious challenges in international relations?
I think that important element is trust of the public in the institutions of the system. People were paying taxes, business was doing well. We enlarged capital investments. Year after year, we were breaking historical records. And we also focused on social assistance, new mothers, children, elderly, startups, workers in public and in private sector were helped by our government. For example, in less than 5 years, the overall budget for salaries of public servants in state administration increased by 47%. Then also the inequality of salaries decreased 5-fold. The highest salary and the lowest salary ratio was 20-1 before I became prime minister, and now is 4-1. So economic growth coupled with reducing salary inequality within the public sector. So this is one element that people were very much appreciative. On the other hand, as you know yourself in politics, sometimes a lot of political events are pseudo-events. And quite often certain urgencies are actually false urgencies. And in politics it's very important to be able to distinguish them. Of course, as prime minister, I'm supposed to worry all the time. But number one, I should not be worried that I'm worried. And number two, I should not worry too much. So I think this solidity, this steadiness in leadership also helped me that our ideas for leading the nation also bring a sense of togetherness within the people. So not necessarily I can exhaust the meaning, someone from the outside could know better and more thoroughly, but these are some of my impressions about how come that we came out so victorious at the end of 2025 after so much of apparent political crisis.
Yeah, so again, for international audience, I mean, the end of this story is very, very remarkable. So I've set up all the challenges that the Prime Minister had, all the ways in which it could have gone wrong, but in fact, the Prime Minister was vindicated. Right? The vote went up very, very significantly. It was a very significant victory. But perhaps most dramatic of all, given some of the problems in elections throughout the world, this election was validated by the Electoral Commission. He was congratulated by the leaders of the other political parties. It was a genuinely functioning, peaceful, democratic process, which we're not achieving even in some quite developed countries in the world. People are not always congratulating each other in the elections. So that's really impressive, right? Now, again, one of the things that we need to try to look at here, I suppose, is now that you've won, right? Now that you're in a stronger position, what's really going to happen to the economy in Kosovo? So I'm going to talk here like a Kosovo businessman, okay?
Yeah.
Right, okay. So my anxiety is you're from the left. Have you increased all these salaries for civil servants? You're helping the pensioners. You're increasing the welfare state. And the rest of Europe sees the problems from this. You know, in my country, our growth is down. There's no innovation. There's no entrepreneurship because we have a left-wing government that's spending too much money on welfare, too much money on salaries, too much money on pensions. And of course, if you read the US national security strategy, they say Europe is finished because a bunch of left-wing governments are spending too much on welfare, too much on this stuff. They don't have dynamism, entrepreneurship, business. So how are you going to keep the economy growing?
Well, guess what? Private sector did even better than public one.
Okay.
So business turnout in 2025 was twice as big as in 2019, which is the first pre-pandemic year, because we cannot compare it with the pandemic year, because then it's we have had inflation during war in Ukraine when it started out of Russian aggression. In 2022, inflation was around 11%, and overall inflation in these years is like below 23%. And at the top of this, we had this growth that we had, and businesses were doing great. Besides turnout, corporate profit, if you compare with the year when I took office, increased more than twice. And employment, overall employment, of course, mainly in private sector, increased by 24%. And average salary in private sector in 4 years increased by almost 60%. So businesses were thriving. If I would do only in the public sector well, but not the private sector wouldn't be thriving, I wouldn't have this result. Okay. So we use several measures that help private sector. For example, super labor for young women and men. Everyone who was from 18 to 29 and got employed in a private sector company got minimum wage for 6 months from government. In next mandate, we're going to do it for women as well. So minimum wage, 6 months from the government. Then we are going to have 1 billion euro as a guarantee for investment loans in the private sector. Because when they go to commercial banks, investment banks, usually they have to put as a guarantee land or other property that they have. But it is the state of Kosovo who is going to be the guarantee for all those who invest in production, manufacture, and so on. So we're going to help a great deal our local producers. We're going to spend a lot of money in 5 new dams, because Kosovo is like a plate turned upside down where the rivers leave the country. We have done feasibility study. We just need to roll our sleeves and get into work, and that is like 5 new dams from central part of Kosovo to southern Kosovo to eastern Kosovo, and 4 new dams feasibility study. Then we need to build 20 stadiums, football stadiums, not like in UK that big, you know, much smaller, 8,000 to 9,000 seats, because we're going to organize Mediterranean Games 2030 together with Durrës in Albania. Then we're going to see how we can do gasification of lignite in our country. And I hope that this mandate will be remembered as mandate of railways. One of them being Pristina-Durrës, will cost approximately 2 billion euros. Feasibility study has been accomplished, and we have international agreement with Albania. So railways, dams, stadiums, gasification of lignite, and until 2031, 1,300 megawatts of solar and wind is something that private business sector should look forward to participate in public auction.
Okay. So Prime Minister, these things in other countries can be a real problem for corruption. Railways, stadiums, loans. People hear the government is going to build a railway line, they buy the land before the government comes in. Loans for companies. I'm getting a loan from the government. How do I make sure that my business gets done? It's not commercial. It's not coming from a commercial bank. I get to the front of the queue, the government gives me a loan for my business. So how are you going to keep this amount of public sector loans spending without just creating fuel for corruption?
First of all, we have inherited a situation where corruption was endemic. And there is huge resistance and resilience among the people never to go back there. So our hope are the people. That people are going to inform the system and the public for whatever corruption they encounter. This is number one. Number two is we have to lead by example. It's very important that no one, absolutely no one, within the cabinets of the ministers have even slightest imagination of engaging in any sort of corruption. So we have to lead by example. And then Kosovo is a quite monitored country by international community, but also by our own system. So I believe that accountability will be in place, and whistleblowers will make us deaf from whistling if anything similar to corruption that you've mentioned will occur.
Well, let's just take an example. So let's say the government bank is making loans to businesses. How do your government civil servants actually decide which business they're giving the loan to? They're not getting any collateral. Somebody comes with a business plan. Why should this company get the loan rather than that?
There will be transparent processes with the committees of professionals and experts who are going to decide. And quite often there will be digital bidding online where everything will be fully transparent. Here, digital transformation can help a great deal. Tech sector in Kosovo is blooming. And we look forward to increase quality of services, transparency of the processes, accountability of the officials, and accessibility to the citizens of everything what state is supposed to provide. So digital transformation on one hand is going to help a great deal, but also we are going to have this right to appeal and human review of every process which must be traceable, even when you include, for example, AI in digital transformation. So I think that we are sufficiently aware to preempt any kind of wrongdoings in the future. But generally, my belief is with transparency to ensure anti-corruption.
And Prime Minister, I wondered whether there's you ever talk to or think about other small countries in Europe and whether you share lessons. You know, I've just come back from Moldova, so I've just been with Maia Sandu, the president of Moldova. I've just been with the president of Cyprus. And I wondered whether there are things that you can share, learn about that experience. Do you see Maia Sandu? Do you think about Moldova? Or do you feel it's too far away? I mean, what do you...
No, it's not far away. They also have aggressive neighbor, much bigger than they are, and who want to employ every crack in the political scene for destabilizing the country. We have seen similarities in terms of hybrid warfare. Now, it has become common to speak of cognitive warfare as well, because there are all these intrusions with sophisticated algorithms, with hundreds of people who work, organize the structures to install certain beliefs and certain narratives. So, for example, during our elections, Russia Today and Sputnik, whose regional base is in Belgrade, have written at least 2 articles per day during the campaign to destabilize our country. So I think that we also share the similarity, the fact that we don't have any kind of larger threats from within. We have external factors who abuse with technological progress, and in this way want to have political and economic gains. However, I think that from Estonia to Moldova, there are so many cases that we learn from each other. I think that they could learn from us as well. And, you know, in today's world, there are no more small and big countries. There are small and big countries only if you erase the future. Only if you neglect the potentiality, what one can do. So in terms of having good life for citizens and thriving democracy, you can be a big country also with a small population. So yes, we do share in eastern flank, so to speak, a lot of similarities, but I must say that quite often they have the same center, Kremlin.
Right. I mean, one of the amazing things that I think that's difficult to understand is how actually you run a successful election. I mean, in Moldova, the president was explaining the way that Russia was using media, social media, they were using Bitcoin, they were using amazing destabilization, they were creating new candidates out of nowhere. And the amount of planning and preparation that the Moldovan government had to put in to try to work out how to anticipate, did you have the same feeling?
Yes, however, I think that in our case, there is a very high degree of skepticism of the entire population towards Russian Federation and despotic President Putin. So you don't have to convince much in our case. And secondly is we had to mind the situation when they use proxies, mediation. So in a way you see certain theses which definitely come from this northeast center, but they maybe speak your language. So I think this is much more sophisticated. When through several layers of mediation, they managed to penetrate in a certain online media where you hear in Albanian what perhaps they are saying in Russian. There are not many examples of this. People's skepticism helps a great deal, and especially our Kosovar Agency for Intelligence. Because I think that now, against hybrid warfare, which is not news anymore, it's news if you don't have hybrid warfare, intelligence agencies are indispensable. And we need some of our best people really to be engaged in intelligence institutions as data analysts and so on.
Good. I'm worried about the light. I wonder whether whether you're getting blinded. Maybe, do you think we could close the curtain?
Too much sun in Davos.
Too much sun.
When I was using my phone, this is what we were trying to do, but apparently we cannot close it from the inside, but I was thinking perhaps someone can find something to close it from the outside, to put maybe some shade.
I don't want the Prime Minister to be blinded. So, I mean, I think the challenges you face are unbelievable. And maybe for an international audience, one big geopolitical question at the moment is the question around neighbors. Right? So we're talking about Moldova, and basically the Russians are supporting in Transnistria a breakaway of their republic. We're talking about Cyprus, and of course, North Cyprus is occupied. Right? We're talking about Ukraine, and Russia has come into Ukraine. And I promise not to talk about Greenland today. Okay. But nevertheless, we are in a world in which people are now trying to move borders. And you are sitting next to probably the most extreme example in the world. There are certainly some people in Serbia who think, Northern Kosovo, Republic of Srpska, we're going to redraw these boundaries. These borders don't matter anymore. Can you talk a little bit about that? What that movement is, how you counter it?
Yeah. Well, let me start by saying that Serbia has experienced a certain setback in these last 4 years. They have had 28 parallel municipalities within the territory of Kosovo, and 5 district centers, parallel institutions, including security apparatus. It's 0 now.
Okay.
So our police combated successfully all the illegal institutions.
So to explain to international listeners a little bit about what these parallel institutions were, how they worked, and what they were trying to do.
Yeah. Well, Kosovo has 38 municipalities. 10 of them are Serb majority. The rest are mixed, but generally Albanian majority. And it's interesting that this was a compromise when we declared independence by Finnish former President Martti Ahtisaari, who was UN Special Envoy. So in order to show our benevolence to our Serb minority, which is around 4% of population, we're going to make Serbian language official language all over our territory at every level of administration, but they're going to have 10 specific municipalities. But Serbian never gave up constitutionally on Kosovo, so they kept parallel offices in our territory. My predecessor didn't deal much with them, and there were some dubious business links. However, once we took office, rule of law, no compromise, and all those offices, parallel institutions, dinar, Serbian currency as mean of payment was banned, and so on and so forth. So we managed to, for example, close 27 illegal pathways where smuggling and organized crime was flourishing, cryptocurrency, drug laboratories, and so on and so forth. So in a way, through rule of law, we have established both state sovereignty and territorial integrity. So,
and yet my memory is that some people in the US and Europe thought that you were being too hard, that this was risky, and they wanted you to be softer. They thought you were being too confrontational.
In my view, what we had was risky.
Right.
So, of course, I'm not a politician who avoids risk or danger. I think that in politics you have to do both at the same time. Mind the risk and embrace it.
Right.
So embrace while minding it. And it worked well. And I think that Serbia was not prepared for what we did. I think that they've made a big mistake. They've ordered all Serbs integrated within the system on 4 northern municipalities to abandon our institutions.
Right.
So, like the old famous, some say cynical French diplomat de Talleyrand said, it's worse than a crime, it's a mistake.
Right.
You know? So that was worse than a crime, it was a mistake. And we managed to fill the vacuum with rule of law of a professional police. And now international factors do recognize that rule of law was the right approach. Some admit less, some more, but I think that that has been very positive. Now, what we risk is some sort of invasion from Serbia. They have 48 forward operating bases around our country, but I don't think it's going to happen. Very low probability, unless Kremlin orders them something. So I don't think that official Belgrade can stand up courageously to despotic President Putin and say no to any kind of orders that they will get from there to destabilize the region. However, Kosovo has a strong army now. We doubled the number of soldiers. It's third year now that we spent over 2% of GDP for our defense. And, definitely they will have to think twice before doing anything to us. And when you think twice, we don't do much. So this is working well, and I'm very optimistic for the times ahead.
That's wonderful. Professor, I wonder whether I could make you sit here so you don't have to stare into the sun. And then I will sit there. No. It's you're talking more. So
you want to see how life is in Prime Minister's office.
Exactly.
Shoes and seats.
Better for you to be there.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So, now you can see. But when I look at the Prime Minister now, he's surrounded by a halo. It's a strange of light. I can't really see your face. So, Prime Minister, just to finish off this question of Serbia, would you be concerned about what's happening with Serbia, Republika Srpska, and Bosnia, or do you think that situation is also one that we don't need to worry about?
I think that situation in Bosnia is much more complicated because you have this entity which has created direct links with Moscow, and they operate like a parastate which calls itself republic in order not to allow Bosnia to remain a proper state. So it's difficult to know how things will unfold. I think that precisely in Bosnia and Herzegovina, EU should show its strength, because even Republika Srpska is not against joining EU. They might quite often work against that, but in contrast to NATO, Republika Srpska doesn't say that they don't want Bosnia and Herzegovina to join EU. So I think this is a unique opportunity for Brussels to prove itself by bringing Bosnia and Herzegovina ever closer to European Union accession. So I think that both hard and soft power of Brussels, especially when it comes to financial means and support, are something that should have their litmus test in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Meanwhile, democratic forces should be joining with each other in order to create a kind of democratic alliance throughout the Balkans. And whoever wants to join EU, truthfully, should get the chance.
So the final question for me, and then maybe we can open up to the audience and take questions online. But I was talking, because it's Davos, to a cynical French diplomat this morning, the sort of de Talleyrand equivalent, a modern French diplomat. And he said to me off the record, listen, we can't have these countries join because we have too many problems. We spend too much time worrying about the internal politics of the European Union. Even though, Moldova is small, or Kosovo is small, or Bosnia is small, it's too much headache for us to worry about this. So I wondered whether you could make the counter-argument. Imagine you were talking to this French diplomat, or you were talking to the German public. How would you explain why it is in the interests of France or Germany or the European Union to enlarge? Oh, genius. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's exactly, artificial intelligence is real intelligence. Thank you. Thank you very much. So what's the counter?
I must say that I've already engaged in such a debate. And I think that the process of joining EU should be merit-based and value-based. So if countries reform internally, that should be acknowledged. For example, Kosovo, when it comes to political freedom, civil liberties, rule of law, anti-corruption, according to Gallup International, Freedom House, World Justice Project, we're either first or second in our region. So it's very important, Brussels, to keep the promise to countries, and who works well and reforms itself, also to be able to pace towards EU. So I don't think that any EU diplomat, French, German, Italian, whatever, should have that right to tell you that you should join or not now, a bit later, maybe together with this other one, because that's not how democracy works, and that's not how multilateralism within EU works. So, to be honest, I oppose a lot of EU politicians by using EU principles.
Very good.
On the other hand, we're not a big region. In terms of our population, all 6 countries of Western Balkans, still not integrated into EU, population amount to the one of Netherlands,
right.
Perhaps even less.
Right.
When it comes to GDP, it's GDP of Slovakia,
right.
Or maybe 40% of Czech Republic. Right. So I was telling them, as a half joke, bail us out, bring us in. So we're not a burden. We could be much a bigger burden if we stay outside than if we come inside. And you know what? It's like our diasporas are together in EU countries. All Balkan nation diasporas are in EU. Sure. So in a way, these countries joining EU, we would have family reunion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think EU would benefit. But when you decide to be afraid, it's very difficult to stop you.
Very good.
So I have an impression that fear is not a simple, primitive emotion, it's rather a choice.
Okay, thank you. So, would love to bring questions in. I might cheekily at some point come back to a last one or two questions, but are there any questions to the audience, or we'll take some questions online, or any directions you want to go? If not, I will selfishly continue to ask lots of questions.
I can bring the audience,
bring one or two online,
virtual
and then I'll
audience
come
questions.
back to the Prime
So
Minister.
I will summarize. There were a number of questions dealing with security, and the question goes to goes to both of you. What do you think is the number one immediate step for security in the Western Balkans?
No, okay, I'll try, and then you can disagree. Okay. I think the fundamental, and this is exactly where I don't want the Prime Minister to have to comment, because I don't want to put him in a difficult position. But the fundamental challenge to security now that we're facing is, unfortunately, a challenge from the United States, right? This is a very, very difficult thing to say, very uncomfortable thing to say. But essentially, since the Second World War, we have created a security architecture in Europe which is completely dependent on the United States. Right? All our cloud computing depends on the United States. Our artificial intelligence will depend on the United States. 60% of all the weapons that the United Kingdom buy from the United States, our nuclear weapon comes from the United States. The dollar is the world's reserve currency. 70% of the global stock market is American. America created the United Nations, NATO, the World Bank, the IMF, right? So everything is arranged on the idea that America is the linchpin of global security. America can be relied on. America created the rules. America created the multilateral institutions. And therefore, we can rely on America against Russia, against China. Now, when America attacks Venezuela, we think, oh, okay, this is unfortunate. There's no congressional approval. What is the legal basis for this? But when America says we're going to take Greenland, it's completely different. Denmark was the first by per capita contributor to the United States in Afghanistan after 9/11. More Danish troops died per capita than anybody else fighting for the Americans in Afghanistan. The whole of NATO in Article 5 exists to protect our state sovereignty. And this should be something that should be relevant to Kosovo. Right? We're talking about the threat that Serbia could pose to Kosovo. Now, here is the United States saying, I'm going to take Greenland. They don't make a legal argument. They don't say there is some historical, battle of Greenland Polye in the 1390s, which mean we're entire. No, they don't even pretend. They don't say there are an indigenous municipality that are asking for us to rescue them. No, they don't even pretend.
Sorry, Rory,
Yeah.
I mean, just to interrupt you, to bring it back to us, since House of Kosovo, more Western Balkan.
Okay, all right. No, but the problem, okay, so I will finish it, and
Yeah,
I'll let the Prime Minister speak, but this is a fundamental problem. We are talking about Russia, and we're talking about security guarantees, and we're talking about Europe. This depends on rules. It depends on deterrence. It depends on predictability. It depends on alliances. And all these things which we took for granted 2 years ago, we should not take for granted today. Now, I don't want the Prime Minister to talk about this because he's leading a country that requires good international relations with the whole world. So he can't go and be like me attacking President Trump. But I do think within this room, this is a serious problem. Okay.
And I would like to say for the record that the views of our guests do not represent.
Sure, I'm not
views of
expressing.
our
This is me as a British minister. I would like this to express, I hope, the views of the British government, but not the views of the government of Kosovo.
Out of 4 neighbors that we have as Republic of Kosovo, 3 of them recognize us. Albania, Montenegro, and North Macedonia. Serbia does not recognize us. It doesn't seem that they want to do it anytime soon, even though I think that they understand more than ever that we are a different country. And reality has changed so much. But what we need to happen is their dreams of return to Kosovo to die out. And here, a contributor is also Russian Empire, which is called Russian Federation nowadays. We know very well from history that Russian Empire doesn't want to have neighbors. But it's impossible not to have neighbors, you know? And that's why EU has so many problems with Russian Federation. And I believe that we need more solidarity within the continental Europe, together also with UK and NATO. Russian Federation wants to destroy both EU and NATO, whereas China wants to become US. So here is a bit of a difference, but not necessarily a very relevant one. And democracy to get development and growth and progress. You can have both. We're a great success story and an example of that. So whoever helps our northern neighbor in its attempt to destabilize us also is causing problems to us. And our immediate threat in this respect is Russian Federation. I must say that the latest NATO summit in Hague was good, because sometimes to become aware of certain shortcomings, you need rather subjective, eventful intervention. And that was done by President Trump. So I think it's very important nations and countries of Europe to stand up to historical task and defend the continent. So this is very important. But definitely we are seeing some geopolitical turbulence. Nobody can foresee how they will end. And foreign policies are changing very easy and fast, as if there is replacement of software without minding of the hardware much. But in spite of all declarations that are done by politicians and diplomats, high-level ones, I think it's very important to invest in defense, and both in modern technology, but in production of ammunition and military equipment. Our country is doing that. In less than a year, we are going to have first bullets produced in Kosovo. We're going to have a factory of made in Kosovo drones, besides factory for ammunition. And we've done co-deployment with British Army in Falkland Islands and in Belize, and we're going to do further such co-deployments. We've done with US in Kuwait. So I still think that in spite of turbulence, we could navigate. But definitely, the chapter or the epoch, if you like, is not the one that we got accustomed to. However, again, we shall not mind the steering up of relations by viewing it only negatively. Because, you know, sometimes certain things in diplomacy and politics function as a vaccine, which increases your temperature and makes you slightly feverish, but ultimately it increases your immunity.
Inshallah, that's good. Okay. Beautiful. You should be a diplomat as well. So one thing that when I was interviewing Maya Sandu in Moldova was surprising for me is I said to her, if you voted in a referendum on rejoining Romania, how would you vote? And the president of Moldova said to me 2 weeks ago, I would vote to rejoin Romania. So the president of an independent country basically said, we're not really Moldovan, we're Romanian, our language is Romanian, we want to amalgamate. No. What is going on there? And how do people think about their relationship with neighbors and ethnicity and language and these kinds of things?
Definitely, there is no such thing as one state or one nation's self-sufficiency. We need to create alliances and to collaborate. Perhaps we need to collaborate more also within NATO. because certain aspects of geography and not only in terms of geostrategy, but also chronostrategy in terms of time, because you have to think how fast certain troops can arrive at a certain point, imply that there must be certain regional alliances within this global Western Hemisphere alliance called NATO, which is the strongest in human history. Therefore, for example, we have this northern arc, UK, Nordic countries, Baltic countries, and Poland. Perhaps some southeast arc in the Balkans is welcome. And Defender 25, when we have been overrepresented as Kosovo, with almost 1,000 soldiers and officers in 25,000 strong military exercise, and US Infantry Division 28 commanded in Southeast Europe all operations from Jakova, which is western part of Kosovo, and put Kosovo into the map of NATO defense from any kind of aggressor, are examples that soldiers of different democratic countries should meet with each other. And what President Sandu said is definitely an indication that, number one, there is no self-sufficiency of any state in continental Europe. And number two, security has become top priority.
And just very quickly for international listeners, I mean, historically, what is the difference between the Moldova-Romanian relationship and the Kosovo-Albanian relationship? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's there's not a big political demand in Albania or Kosovo at the moment for amalgamation, whereas there is in Moldova for this Romanian. What's the difference?
Citizens of Kosovo and citizens of Albania feel that they never had the amount of freedom historically. No way you can find in our history this amount of freedom that we enjoy currently anywhere. Of course, we have our national hero, Skanderbeg, from mid-15th century. But, other than that, always to certain degree in oppressed, exploited, occupied more or less, Ottoman Empire, then Yugoslavia, first as a kingdom, then as a dictatorship of a communist regime, and so on and so forth, then Milosevic fascism, Serbian fascism resurrected. So, we have this freedom as citizens. However, definitely, similar to the case of Romania and Moldova, also citizens of Albania and citizens of Kosovo, they speak the same language, and they don't feel that we are two different nations. Yes, separate states, Republic of Albania, Republic of Kosovo, but not two different nations, two different passports. So, on the other hand, we want also to join NATO and EU, like Albania. Albania is in NATO, but NATO is in Kosovo. So we don't feel, perhaps, this amount of threat that Moldova has from Russian Federation. And of course, we cannot compare the relation between Kosovo and Serbia with Moldova and Russian Federation, because Russian Federation is much bigger and stronger than Moldova, of course, whereas with Serbia now, as I said, they have to think twice. And there is no Transnistria in Kosovo. Maybe there was something similar to Transnistria 5-10 years ago in the northern part, but not anymore. They have also Gagauzia there, if I'm not mistaken. So Transnistria and Gagauzia, in Transnistria, they, if I'm not mistaken, there are Russian soldiers there. So, interestingly, that agreement is like 33 years ago, 1993. And I think that when Kosovo was liberated from Kosovo Liberation Army and NATO intervention, and British, American, French, Italian, and German troops entered, 55,000 in summer 1999, they did not allow for a Russian canton within Kosovo. It could be that that was also as part of lessons learned from Moldova.
Right.
So I think that we have an advantage there. However, I must say that 5 to 10 years ago, in the northern part of Kosovo, you wouldn't be able to walk freely and speak Albanian, which is the case now. And that's why, in terms of imminent threat that Moldova feels from Russian Federation, we don't have anything similar in Kosovo.
Well, I think we're coming to the end. I mean, I wanted to say a huge thank you. I mean, for me as a foreigner, it's a great, great privilege. It's a great privilege. It's extraordinary to see two things which would be almost impossible to predict. One of them is a very successful, well-run election. I don't mean the result for my friend. I mean the process and the way in which democracy in Kosovo works. And secondly, the extraordinary progress on corruption, which is the most difficult thing in any country in the world. Of course, the problem is not ended. I mean, it still exists. But it's much, much, much better. And the odds against that are so high. So I feel very encouraged. I strongly feel the European Union needs to develop some courage. They need to move very, very fast to incorporate the Western Balkans.